Hey guys, it's Joe from Eastwood, and in this video we are going to go over 3 types of common welds that you are definitely going to need for your automotive project car. We're going to be taking a look at how to stitch weld, how to plug weld, and lastly we'll teach you how to do a normal weld on some thicker material. The first weld we're going to take a look at today is going to be the stitch weld. A stitch weld is just a series of 50% overlapping spot welds, with the goal being to minimize the heat that you put into this panel, but you still want to make a strong joint, which a stitch weld is capable of. With thin sheet metal like this, when you add a lot of heat to it, it has the tendency to warp, so if you want flat panels on your project car, a stitch weld is a great option. Obviously, what we're working with here is just a straight line in between 2 square panels, but let's say you're putting in a panel like this size onto a project car, you'd want to move around the edges of this panel in order to dissipate the heat around it as much as possible. So, let me show you how it's done. Pretty simple. We're going to flip our welder on and do it. All right, so our stitch welds don't look too bad. I think that bottom one I just did might be a little bit hot, so I'm gonna check it. And yeah, it's definitely getting to that point where if this was a real car, I'd stop and let that heat dissipate. But since this is just a demonstration panel, we're gonna move right on with the plug weld. So the next welding technique we're gonna talk about is the plug weld. Now, these are super common in automotive. You find these a lot on rocker panels, truck beds, or like the setup we have right here, a floor pan. Now, all a plug weld is an overlap weld, but instead of welding along the seam, you're gonna weld through punched holes on the top panel to bring your 2 panels together. This technique is gonna be really, really simple. The way I like to do these is I like to start from the outside and work my way into the center. I will just follow this circle right here, putting the wire right on that connection point. And then once I have that perfect circle down, I go back and fill it in so that it's nice and flat. And that is going to be the plug weld. So let's put the helmet down and I'll show you how this is done. All right, so first one down of the day. That one's looking pretty good. Let's run through the rest of these and see how they turn out. All right, so not looking too bad here. First 5 plug welds of the day. 4 of them look pretty good. The one of them I'm not too pleased with. I did miss a tiny spot, but I'm just gonna go back and hit that one more time with a little bit of extra wire, fill that in, and you can smooth that out with a grinder. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is the normal weld. You're definitely gonna need that, so let's clear this stuff off the table and I'll show you how that one's done as well. All right, so the last weld you're gonna need to know is probably one you guys already know already, and that is gonna be the normal weld. You see this all the time on the heavier stuff. Think frame, think suspension, so you're definitely gonna wanna have this in your back pocket. Now, this is gonna be a basic overview where I just go over how to run a normal bead quickly. If you want a more in-depth guide, I do have a nice how to MIG tutorial out there that goes over everything you need to know. Check that out if you're just beginning. So to do this, there's 2 basic things you need to know. It's gonna be your direction of travel and the technique as you go along. So for direction of travel, if you're a righty like me, you can push your weld bead along. That's going to go in this direction. That will tend to give you a little bit better looking of a weld when you go in that direction. Conversely, you can also pull your weld along. I tend to find that a little bit easier, so I do that when I can. You can't always do it. Something might be in your way, but that's the way that I like to stick with. And also, generally speaking, that will give you a little bit better penetration as well when you're pulling your weld along. Secondly, the technique, this is what I like to do, little lowercase cursive e's as I'm going along, just like this. That's where a lot of people start. I find that to work really well, especially for T-joints, just like this one on thin metal. That works great, so that's what I'm gonna show you how to do today. As you're doing this, make sure you just watch that molten weld puddle. Don't look at the wire, don't look at the piece itself, just watch your puddle and try to line it up with that crease. Go along nice and slow, and you will improve drastically. So with all that said, let's lower the hood and run a couple beads. All right, so here's that bead you just watched. First thing I want to say, I'm not a pro, but I'm happy with how this turned out. You can see right here in the middle, we kind of caught a groove. Those beads are nice and tight, good penetration between the top and the bottom. I like how this heat line ended up perfectly flat and straight across this top piece. I did speed it up a little bit here at the end because I started to feel this was getting a little hot, which is something that you want to do. And also I had a little bit of warm up here at the front, but overall, this is exactly what you can expect with a couple hours of practice and the MIG 140, decent little normal weld. Well guys, there you go. Some basic techniques that you are definitely gonna need for your project car. Keep in mind, I do have a how to MIG guide that goes way more in depth than what you saw here. If you're just starting out, be sure to check that out. Click the button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're giving away a MIG 180 welder at 500,000 subscribers, so make sure you subscribe for that. I'll have the MIG 140 link below. As always, thank you for watching. I'm JD. Keep it right here at Eastwood to do the job right.